Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs, and the room is stutters. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of the flow, yeah.
Hey y'all, welcome to a new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. Of course, if this isn't your first time listening to the show, thank you so much for continuing on this wrestling journey with me. And of course, if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome and thank you for joining and catching the vibes. Of course, this is your favorite chill, positive, and passionate wrestling show. And, we're growing and we're doing amazing things. So, thank you for joining me live if you are on here live on this Saturday night. And of course, if you're listening to this later, thank you for listening to it later as you're working, as you're doing things, getting your day started, or even just moving about in life. Just thank you so much for making room for me. M- Making room in your life for me to be there and give you everything that's going on in my wrestling world from my perspective. So I'm just so happy to be able to do this show, and I just want to be grateful for that and just start off with that. Today is a somber day in the wrestling community as we commemorate the 1 year anniversary of the passing of Bray Wyatt. He was such a creative force, and it does not feel like it's been a year since he's been gone. But it also just doesn't feel fair. But at the same time, we still remember and hold all the memories close that we have of him, and keep his family lifted. His fiance, JoJo, his children, and his entire family lifted as we um, try to navigate life without this amazing figure in wrestling, in our lives. But of course, the memory of him still lives as we see the evolution of the Wyatt Six taking place, and it's just a really amazing salve to such a big blow. But I did want to just come on here and say something and just say that I always loved Bray Wyatt and I always wanted the world for him, and it still just doesn't feel right that he's gone. But in the meantime, he'll always be remembered and loved in this space and in the wrestling community as a whole. So I just wanted to at least start the show with that. But of course, if you are in the comments, light up the chat and talk about anything that, or speak out on whatever it is that you want to hear about when it comes to wrestling. And just, as the subjects keep coming up, you just continue to make your voices heard and you might wind up, on the screen. So, yeah, thank you all for watching on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on all the things. Thank you guys so, so much for watching. So, of course, we have got to start off with, sorry, technical difficulties, with news and gossipish. And there's a lot happening in the world of professional wrestling. It's been a pretty chill week when it comes to the news in wrestling, but at the same time, lots of substantial things did take place and happen. So, of course, we got to get into all of the things. So, Ricochet, or at least maybe the man formerly known as Ricochet, maybe we'll still call him that, I don't know, um, has been reported as signing a multi-year deal with AEW. And it was reported by Fightful Select that this seems to be, a really legit thing. So he will be going forth with the rest of his wrestling career at AEW, and it was very much highly speculated that he would be moving forward with this move due to the fact that the level of wrestling in AEW is something that he is more used to as opposed to being in WWE and not really making it to the very top like he wanted to. So yeah, he is definitely expected to join AEW, and he quietly signed the deal with the promotion, and with the help of an agent, it is absolutely official. So with AEW having so many, actually not even so many events, with them having All In happening tomorrow and then having All Out happen another like in another week, there's so much, speculation as to where he could possibly pop up, because as I will get into in this show, they will AEW will be having a casino gauntlet match which has a number of participants in it, but they have not announced any other people who could be in it, and it could be a surprise type of thing. So Ricochet could pop up. You just never know. But we do send happy thoughts and happy trails to Ricochet as he starts this new chapter in his career. We're going to miss him on the WWE side of things, but it's going to be cool to see what type of matches he participates in AEW, because, of course, he has that viral match with Will Ospreay, and they could run that back. And then there's a level of new talent that's there that he could fight with as well. So big ups to Ricochet for making this move for himself. I'm really excited to see what could happen with him there. Also in news and gossipish, which really isn't news per se, but it's important for me, is the fact that this week I was able to talk to Joe Hendry on the phone on Busted Open Radio with Dave LaGreca and Tommy Dreamer. Now, what's so funny about this is that this morning, well, not this morning, but a few mornings ago, I was just ambling around on Twitter on my phone. I wasn't driving, and I saw the number for Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM, and it said, you can call in and talk to Joe. And I was just like, hmm, let me see if I could call in and just get in. Because, of course, when you call in on the radio, it's not entirely guaranteed that you're going to get in. But, of course, I called in, and then the phone starts ringing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to talk to Joe Hendry. And the person answered the phone first. The person who was over the phones answered the phone first. I told him my name, and then of course I finally got in and was able to listen in a little bit before I was able to talk to Joe Hendry. And Dave LaGreca, who's like an OG in wrestling media, asked me, why do you believe in Joe Hendry? And I said, because his theme song just elicits so much joy. And I talked about how I found him on TikTok, and how, I kind of just watched, more of TNA to see what he's about, especially with the NXT thing going on. And I'm just really excited, whenever his song comes on, because it has the crowd participation component of it with everybody waving their hands and singing along. And that's just my type of thing. So I was able to say that to him, and he sounded really excited about that. So I'm really happy to have gotten to talk to Joe Hendry, even if it was only for a few minutes. And maybe one day in the future I'll get to interview him. But at least I was able to talk to him over the phone on a Wednesday morning, the Wednesday after he won his opportunity to face Ethan Page for the NXT title at NXT No Mercy. So that was just really cool. And I just wanted to share that little bit of a tidbit, even though I know it's not particularly on the news and gossipish side of things. I just wanted to talk about that because that was just really cool. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Also in news and gossipish, we have the report that AJ Mendez's autobiography, Crazy Is My Superpower, is being developed into either a TV show or a documentary for A&E. So for those who might need a little reminder and a refresher course, AJ Mendez was a WWE diva slash superstar, who held the record for being one of the longest reigning Divas champions, and she was known as AJ Lee back in the day. And she went on to retire from WWE, and she got married to CM Punk. So they're, of course, are a thing, and they're an amazing couple. And CM Punk has alluded to her multiple times since he's returned to WWE. And a lot of people have been wondering whether or not she could come back if she, wants to. But a lot of people don't realize that she really has like another career as a writer and as a producer of different things and comic books and such. And now it's being speculated that her autobiography, Crazy is My Superpower, is going to be a TV show. So it was announced in 2017 that there was a show announcement, but then in an interview the comic on the Comic Con regarding her comic status, she mentioned that the series was still in development, but that it was going to be airing on A&E whenever it eventually makes it to television. And she talked about how writing the book was always going to be a challenge because she's very guarded about her personal life and how opening up um, was important, even if it ended up being able to help someone. And she said, quote, "It was an interesting struggle at first because I am the most private person in the world. I share nothing. I'm a brick wall. When you do have a lot of people listen to you, the things you say matter. There is value in that, and you have to be considerate. I was willing to share this life lesson I learned embracing my mental health struggles. That's a piece of me I'm willing to share with the world if it can help other people. My book is very much about growing up in poverty, growing up homeless, and not understanding the mental illness that was getting in my body and within my family." So, in this book, she was very open about her struggles with bipolar disorder and how she went on to find out that that's something that, in a sense, runs in her family. And she talked about all the ways in which she was able to combat that and overcome it so that she could be able to pursue her wrestling career and, just reach the level of success that she has. And it is such an amazing book. I read it when it first came out years ago. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it already. But yeah, like it's a really good book, and I can't wait to see how, it would come to life on television because there's a story there that definitely needs to be told and it needs to be uplifted. And then there's a level of storytelling within that I'm not sure can just be kept like in, say, a 1 hour or even a 1 hour movie or something like that. Like if it's in a series, it could be easily digestible, and there's so much content that could be made from it. So I'm really excited about the fact that this could be a TV show. So big ups to AJ Mendez slash AJ Lee, and I can't wait to see how Crazy Is My Superpower comes to be as a television series. Moving on to other parts of news and gossipish, we found out this week that Triple H, C the CCO of WWE, watches Twitter slash X. It's really funny. Mike Johnson of PW Insider wrote that he's been told that there are times where he is scrolling through Twitter from the gorilla position at the broadcast of Raw and SmackDown and NXT and paying very close attention to what the audience is doing and reacting to as the show is going on the air. And of course, a lot of people, said that this is a very smart move for him, and that even though he may have his creative plans in place, he's willing to gather reactions and opinions from fans across social media in an attempt to find out instantly what works and what does not. And I really do appreciate this, even though it low key scares me a bit. Because there are times where I have live tweeted as well over the past few years and figured out, what type of power that, holds when you are a fan that's willing to speak out about the things and react to the things as you're watching it, as you're live tweeting. So the idea that Triple H might be scrolling through on us and seeing things that we're saying is just really insane to think about. But it also lets you know that he really is, keeping his finger on the pulse of what's relevant and what's going on, and what's current. And I actually appreciate that. I actually like that in a leader where creatively he's seeing, the things that people are saying about things and finding ways to sort of incorporate that. And we're seeing that more as WWE continues to evolve as a product. So I'm really excited to know that Triple H is somewhere looking at us, and wonder and seeing what we're saying in the ether and probably putting it into the show. But this was very fascinating and also kind of scary in a sense to, know about. But hey, big ups to Triple H for keeping his finger on the pulse of what's relevant. Also in news and gossipish, we have Kenny Omega and an update on his injury. It was said by um Dave Meltzer, who we do have to take with a grain of salt, that he is still in recovery from a number of surgeries that he had been having and dealing with, but that he could be returning to AEW television soon. So hopefully, Kenny Omega is healing up and that he can perform on a level of which, that we that he can perform on, but then that we're also entertained from. I hope that he's, doing all right. He has been missing from television for a minute now, and I'm hoping that maybe somehow this weekend or even within the next week we can see him return. But if not, as long as he's taking his time to heal up, that's really all that truly matters. Because of course, these wrestlers are human beings, and we have to remember that they deserve time to rest and get themselves situated before they could come on television. And a part of me wonders if he did return to AEW, would he be a part of the elite as they continue to wreak havoc as being in charge of AEW? Or would he buck against the system? No pun intended. Who knows? But as long as he, is healthy, that's all that matters. So big ups to Kenny Omega. Also in news and gossipish, we have former TNA president Scott D'Amore speaking out a little bit more on what happened with his departure from TNA. He had an interview with Chris Van Vliet on his show Insight. Shout out to him because I've actually met him a few times. He was really nice. He mentioned in the interview, and he was quoted as saying, "We saw things differently as far as how we wanted to proceed. So I think partially they just wanted their guys in charge. And I mean, I had a good 7 years with those guys, but I'm not an Anthem guy. I don't sit in that Toronto office. I have my thoughts, and you could say it's my ego. I just don't think it was the right move, and I don't begrudge them. They're doing their thing, they're still going, and they're going to run that company. I always say that everything is bigger than one person, even me. If I'm gone tomorrow, things will still go on." And he also spoke about the return of TNA Wrestling as a brand because, of course, for a few years it was called Impact Wrestling, but now it's TNA again. And he seemed like he was extremely excited to return to its roots on television because, I just remember that promo he cut where he said, "If you have something you love, you don't let it die. Um, you just, you might have to stay away from it a little bit, but eventually you have to come back." And he seemed very thrilled that Impact went back to being called TNA. It was just really cool for me, and that was a really amazing moment in wrestling. And it did kind of shock me because Scott D'Amore seemed like he was very passionate about the TNA brand and restoring it, to a level of its former glory. But sadly, things didn't work out that way, and he was let go. But I am happy to hear that he is still rooting for the success of TNA, even if it doesn't involve him. Because a lot of people, could have been petty about that situation and said, "Oh, well, it'll be nothing without me, blah, 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 blah." But that's just not how life works. And I'm glad that he is looking at it from afar and still wishing it the very best. So big ups to Scott D'Amore. He is a respected member of the wrestling community, and I'm hoping, of course, that down the line we will see him in wrestling again. I do believe he is, running another promotion, so he's doing fine, and I just can't wait to see more of what he does in wrestling as a whole. Now, something fascinating that has been happening in wrestling is that a lot of wrestling fans have been speculating about the status of the absolute Ricky Starks in AEW because he has not been on AEW TV in a number of months. And a lot of people were wondering, is he injured? Is there another project going on? Or is he sitting out his contract until he is ready to leave? Well, on the media call for All In, AEW president, CEO, creator, booker, all the things, Tony Khan, mentioned that and confirmed that Tony Starks is still under contract with AEW. So yeah, it's official. The CEO said it, so it's still very much true. Ricky is still with AEW. Now, of course, there were a number of fans who were okay with this news. There were a number of fans who weren't okay with this news because they're kind of waiting for him to leave at this point because they believe that his worth and his talents are being wasted because he's not on television right now. They feel like he could be active somewhere else. He would be better utilized in WWE or even in TNA or anywhere else at this point. But it's hard to know. It's hard to, put together because at the end of the day, this is Ricky's decision and he has to live with it. But I will say this, the first time I saw Ricky Starks wrestle and I heard him speak, I was just enthralled. And I wanted the world for him, especially when he was in that world title picture with MJF. I wanted him to win so bad at Winter is Coming, but he didn't. But he really had an amazing showing. So hopefully at some point, as he stays in not in TNA, I'm sorry, as he stays in AEW, hopefully he'll be able to blaze another trail as he continues to succeed, and maybe, he'll work his way back up to the top pretty soon. But if not, it is his decision. So yeah, just wishing good vibes to Ricky Starks in all things. And that hopefully maybe one day he'll play another multiversal gambit. But that's another story for another day. Um, love to Ricky Starks always. Also, in pretty disturbing and sad TNA news, former TNA champion Rich Swann was arrested on June the 8th in Altamont Springs, Florida, and charged with disorderly public intoxication, causing a disturbance and which is a misdemeanor offense. And it's being reported that he is entering a substance abuse rehab program, which was told by Post Wrestling on Wednesday. And the company first learned of his arrest when they contacted them on Monday for comment. And this made me sad to see because the first time I saw Rich Swann was when he was in the cruiserweight division in WWE that they recently had, that of course is no longer a thing. And he was always the guy that was dancing around with the theme song that says, "Can you handle it? Can you handle this? Can you handle this?" And I thought he was cool. And then I met him after a SmackDown show here in Birmingham, and he was so sweet. And he actually signed my Raw Women's title, and he was just really nice, and I just really loved him in the ring. So of course things didn't work out with WWE. He left, and then he wound up signing with TNA, and then he became a champion, and that was really cool, and I was happy about that. But he has had his struggles before, and this seems to be, another bump in the road with that. So hopefully at some point he will be, off the struggle bus and able to, get back to what truly matters is number one, his health, and number two, his career. So big ups to not big ups to Rich Swan. I hope that you continue to heal and get better from all of your crazy circumstances, and then you'll be back on television where you belong because you're super talented and you deserve all the good things. So yeah, we have Malcolm in the chat saying rumor has it that AEW is following WWE's footsteps for streaming services. Plus, I'm hearing that they're dropping their price so Max can go in battle at Peacock. Thank you for that. I would actually love it if AEW became a part of a streaming service because something that I thought was interesting about them is the fact that they have this, connection with Warner Brothers, but yet their stuff is not on HBO Max. And as a Max subscriber, I would really love being able to watch their pay-per-views on Max and already have that, in my package. But somehow they don't do that. They're doing the traditional pay-per-view route. So if they are going into streaming, then that would definitely be helpful for people like me who prefer the whole streaming subscription thing as opposed to, the big pay-per-view thing where you have to pay a lot of money for that. So if that's true, then that's great. So thank you for that tidbit, Malcolm. Thank you very much for your support and love. Um, and also in news and gossipish, something hilarious, but not really hilarious, I will say. Something that was really poignant that happened in wrestling this week was John Cena having an interview on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. Now, for those who may not know who Shannon Sharp is, he used to be an NFL football player. I believe he's a Hall of Famer at this point, and he played football with his brother. And now he's more of a sports commentator and a sports host that you can find on First Take. He used to be um, on Fox Sports with Skip Bayless, and a lot of people don't like him. But at the same time, Shannon has his own audience, and he has his own other show called Nightcap. So he had an interview with John Cena, and it was very, very deep. I definitely recommend that you listen to it and or watch it or whatever. And Shannon Sharp asked him, "Who do you consider to be the greatest of all time when it comes to wrestling as a whole?" And he named off Ric Flair. He named off a number of other people. And John Cena gave a really good answer that surprised a lot of people. He said that Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time. He basically said that in 2012, the stock was traded at $11 when it comes to WWE. But now WWE and TKO stock is now at $117. And that's on Roman Reigns' shoulders. And there isn't a better indication of that. And that's really interesting because before, you could argue that John Cena really did hold down the brand for a long period of time before he went into part time status. And there was a struggle with Roman Reigns at that time because they were trying so hard to make him into the next phase instead of him naturally getting there that fans was rejecting him. Fans were rejecting him left and right. And the fact that they kept putting him in main event circumstances, especially when it comes to WrestleMania and them trusting him with so many titles and stuff, like it was clear that they were seeing something that the fans at the time just weren't seeing at first. And the fact that he survived so much, like with his leukemia diagnosis and so many other things, to still be on top and still entertain us, even when we weren't as grateful for it, and then went on to reinvent himself as the tribal chief now, has just really been an insane ride. But you do have to give him credit where credit is due. Everything that was put in front of him, he was able to do well. And you could argue about it until the cows come home. I'm not going to argue about it right now and right here. But John Cena's opinion does really hold a lot of weight here. And I'm more than sure that Roman might appreciate it. And we're definitely sending healing vibes to Roman Reigns, not only because he got beat up by his cousin, but because, in real life, his family is dealing with another loss. Um, so, yeah, in John Cena's eyes, Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time. And you could argue whether or not it's valid, but at the same time, the numbers don't lie. So I think this is a cool cosign from a guy who is preparing to wrap up his career next year. So I think this was a really special little cosign here. And that is all for news and gossipish. And now we're going to move to a special segment, which is, of course, us. Well, actually, yeah, which is, of course, us giving our predictions for AEW All In, which takes place tomorrow at Wembley. It's really insane how this event has grown. Okay, Malcolm is asking, do you see John having one more title run before retiring? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. But moving on into predictions for All In, like this event has definitely grown. And then of course last year their first All In London took place, and it broke a lot of records in terms of attendance, even though you could argue about that as well. But at the same time, it was still a huge deal for wrestling fans over there, who at the time wasn't getting a lot of wrestling events that on that level and on that size, and now they are, and it's just really great to see AEW being at the center of that. So of course this is their second All In London, and we're going to give our predictions here, HWP predictions. So we're starting with the women, even though this is a mixed tag match. We have a 0 hour match with Willow Nightingale, the CMLL Women's Champion, and Tomohiro Ishii versus Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. Now, this is interesting considering Willow has been in a beef with Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway over the past couple of months because, of course, Willow lost her TBS title to Mercedes Moné. And after it happened, she was feeling all kinds of sad, but then Chris Statlander stabbed her in the back and started attacking her after the match was over. And Stokely started, just railroading her and disparaging her and talking trash about her. And Chris has also been running through competition and beating them left and right. And so Willow wants to get her pound of flesh and her revenge back. So as this is going on, we have this tag team match. And what's so funny is there is a stipulation in this tag team match that if either team wins, they get to choose the stipulation for Willow and Chris Statlander's match at All Out, which is taking place in 2 weeks. So my prediction is that I see Chris and Stokely winning this match. And that's not because I don't believe in my girl Willow, because I have said multiple times on this show, I love Willow to death. I love her, love her, love her. But I feel because Stokely Hathaway doesn't really wrestle, I feel like they're going to use some underhanded tactics to possibly win this match. They're going to play dirty, and it's going to be really irritating. And then they're going to choose a stipulation thinking it's going to be, you know, bad for Willow. But then once All Out comes around, Willow is going to outdo Chris Statlander and wind up, getting her pound of flesh and her revenge for their friendship ending the way that it did. So I'm predicting Chris and Stokely will win this match, but Willow will ultimately come out the victor in a few weeks. So that's my prediction for that one. Now, moving on, we have this very high profile match in terms of the AEW women's division. You have the TBS and New Japan Strong Women's Champion Mercedes Moné, my GOAT, going up against, you could say, one of the, well, no, not even one of the, possibly basically the face of AEW in terms of historical record, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Now, this is a dream match that I have been sort of cooking in my mind because, of course, with Mercedes Moné being a free agent, but then wrestling in New Japan and then Stardom and not really knowing where she was going to go last year, a part of me was just like, bro, what if she went to AEW and then she fought Dr. Britt? That would be insane, right? So she signs with AEW. She's been having multiple matches with AEW's best in their women's roster, defending her title left and right. And she's also preparing to defend the New Japan Strong Women's title at Capital Collision as well against Momo Watanabe. And, she's just doing her thing. But then Dr. Britt comes along and she wants to challenge Mercedes because Mercedes has been saying she's the new face of AEW's women's division. And of course, Dr. Britt, being the first woman to ever sign to AEW, doesn't take too kindly to that. And so, you have a clash of the Titans. And this is amazing for women's wrestling history. Let me just say that. And it's also insane when you think about how last year Mercedes was in the audience for All In. Like she said in her newsletter called Monet Magazine, if you aren't subscribed to it, I definitely recommend it. It's a good read every week. She said that Tony Khan invited her to All In and she came and had a good time, just on some I love wrestling type of stuff. And she really enjoyed it. And now she's performing in it. And it's really cool how this is happening. So this is really hard to predict because both women are amazing in their own way. And even though um, it's really hard because it's just Mercedes is my GOAT, and I know that Dr. Britt is definitely going to give her a run for her money. And she might almost take the title from her, but then you also have the X factor of Mercedes having her muscle, Camille, the former longtime NWA Women's World Champion, by her side. And she could possibly cheat, and stuff like that. And then, of course, for all we know, we could have um, another group of women on Mercedes' side with the Monet Corporation. And, that could, play a factor into things. But ultimately, I think I'm going to predict that Mercedes Moné is going to retain the TBS title. I believe she's had it for a while. Now it's been maybe 2 or 3 months now, and I just don't want to see her give it up at this point. I enjoy the aesthetic of watching her have two belts and becoming a belt collector of sorts, like she was in WWE with the Golden Role Models with Bayley. I really like it. So I am going to predict that Mercedes is going to retain. Um, And we're going to get a good match, but I feel like we're going to get some shenanigans as well. So this is going to be cool. I'm really here for it. But then you also have Dr. Britt, who's also had people on her side as well, like Rebel or like Jamie Hayter. So you just never know what could happen here. Lots of shenanigans could take place. But I'm predicting that Mercedes is ultimately going to retain the title and it's going to be cool. But for the sake of women's wrestling history, this is going to be fantastic. And I'm happy that this is finally happening. And then, of course, you have the big one, the other big one, really, AEW and their Women's World Championship being defended by Timeless Tony Storm and the Glamour Mariah May. Now, of course, Mariah May has stabbed Tony Storm in the back and attacked her after winning the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. And Tony Storm didn't take to this at all because, of course, she was kind of ignoring her at first, but then Mariah was sort of begging to be in her orbit as her protege, and Tony finally embraced her and made her a part of things with Luther and stuff. And a part of me was wondering, like, is Mariah May gonna do her the same way Mickey James did Trish Stratus back in the day? But for months, it just didn't happen until it happened, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. So, with this happening and this match taking place, I feel like it's going to be really intense because when Mariah was bragging about it in her first promo, um, after she attacked Tony, Tony got back at her finally and yelled at her and said, "Are you prepared to die? Because I am." And that let me know everything I needed to know. That let me know everything I needed to know. So I feel like Mariah is an amazing wrestler. Her resume definitely speaks for itself when it comes to being the foreign ace and just being a force in that type of wrestling as a whole, and then transitioning over to AEW. But then you have Tony, who essentially did the same thing, and tried to make a go of it in WWE, and things turned out to be cool at first, but then didn't work out immediately. But now she's here in AEW doing her thing, and honestly, this could go either way because Mariah May as a villain is very enthralling. Um, but Tony has just had a stranglehold on that title. So it's really hard to tell. But I think I'm going to predict that Tony Storm is going to retain and she's going to get the upper hand over Mariah May as the teacher surpassing the student. And yeah, it's just going to be really cool. I just really think Tony is just going to be very vicious towards her and it's just going to be a very entertaining bout for sure. So I'm really happy that this All In has three matches on it. If you count the 0 hour, three women's matches on it, and it's just going to be really amazing. So big ups to all these women for all of the work they've been doing for women's wrestling as a whole. So yeah, it's going to be cool. So move to the men's matches. We have MJF versus Will Ospreay for the AEW American Championship. Now, this is a lot different than what a lot of people were speculating was going to happen with Will Ospreay once he signed to AEW. They thought for sure he was going to be shot up to the world title picture with Swerve and he could possibly win in his home country. But of course, that's not where we are. And now we're here. And Will Ospreay had won the international title, but then he lost it to MJF, and they've been having a beef going on ever since. But MJF took the international title and renamed it the American title, and it's just so weird and it just has really negative vibes to it for me. So because of that, I'm just hoping that Will Ospreay retains in his home country and turns it back into the international title because I am definitely here for baby faces getting their moment in their home countries, especially like London and places like London that has a very passionate wrestling fan base, and Will Ospreay is definitely a part of that fold. So I'm hoping and predicting that Will Ospreay will win his title back and turn it back international the way that it deserves to be because this flip flopping is just a little bit too much for me. It's too much. Just turn it back to what it was supposed to be. Win it back, Will. Please win it back for me. Please, Will. Please, bruv. So yeah, that's my prediction for that. And then we have Jack Perry versus Darby Allen, or in this case, Darby All In. Y'all see what I did there? I'm corny. For the TNT Championship, in a coffin match. This graphic doesn't really, say that, but it has been announced as a coffin match. This is the wheelhouse for Darby Allen. As he loves, his signature coffin drop, and he also likes to destroy himself in matches like this. And actually, so does Jack Perry. And I think this is interesting how he's holding a title in this pay per view where just last year he was attached to a very infamous incident, which we won't be discussing at this pay per view or whatever. And now he's back and he's a heel and he's a champion. So it's just interesting what could happen in a whole year. And Jack Perry definitely has been working hard and he deserves to hold this title. And what's so funny is he's even making the title his own because he designed his own TNT championship because he's good at a trade. We are bigging up trades this year. So yeah, this is really interesting. Darby Allen is a multi-time TNT champion, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind having that title back. But simply because I feel like Jack Perry is really finding his own with the championship and he hasn't held it for long, I think I'm just going to predict that Jack Perry is going to win the match and that Darby Allen, yeah, will be in a coffin, but somehow he'll find a way to do like an Undertaker and rise and all out. So yeah, Jack Perry, he's my prediction to win the match. He will retain his TNT championship. But I feel like this is going to be a very extreme match, but this is also not the only extreme match that's going to take place on this card. So this is going to be fun, but Jack Perry is definitely going to win. And then, of course, we have the Casino Gauntlet match, which I mentioned prior in News and Gossipish for a guaranteed world title opportunity. The people that have been announced as participants in this match is Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, who is the Ring of Honor World Champion, Kyle O'Reilly, Hangman Adam Page, and Evil Uno. And because we don't know everyone who's going to be participating in this match, this leaves room for those amazing surprises that we love as wrestling fans. And this is where I feel that Ricochet might be making his debut. And if so, it would be amazing if he did. It would be really crazy if he won the whole thing and then got a world title shot. That would be really sick because him versus Swerve or him versus Bryan Danielson would be amazing. A feast for the eyes in terms of wrestling, but of course you just have to wait and see what's going to happen. But that's my prediction. I really feel that Ricochet, since he has signed with them, will make his debut in this match. And of course, if he doesn't, then chalk it up to just me being wrong and just putting stuff out there in the universe. But you just never know. So I'm just putting that out there. So hey, it's cool. It's fine. Then, of course, we have the FTW Championship match between the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho, and Hook. And there is another extra stipulation with this match where if Hook loses, he can no longer challenge for the FTW Championship as long as Chris Jericho holds it. And of course, if he wins it, he'll just win it, and everybody will be happy. Hook has definitely done his thing with the FTW title, which was created and curated by his father, Taz. But it seems that that's really the only title he's been able to hold, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. And I know that that title is essentially sort of like his birthright and his baby. So a part of me would like to see him move towards something else because he really is a good wrestler. But at the same time, I would love to see him win this title back because Chris Jericho just does not seem like the right person to be holding this type of title. I just don't think this title was made for someone of Chris Jericho's ilk as a wrestler. So I'm predicting that Hook, will win the title back. Even though there is a deep part of me that would like to see him challenge, for other titles as well. And that's no shade or anything, but That's just how I feel creatively. But, I'm predicting that Hook will win it back simply just to give Chris Jericho a foil and just make him cry and, all that other stuff. But then, of course, there are also shenanigans that could take place because he has his students that could, interfere on his behalf. Shout out to Brian Keith because I just love that he's on a big show like that. So big ups to the bounty hunter. Even though I know that's not his name, I know he's the bad apple, but to me, he'll always be the bounty hunter, Bounty Keith. So yeah. Then we have the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. It's a triple threat between FTR, the Young Bucks, and also the runners of AEW, the presidents, CE Bros, I guess you could say, um, Matt and oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, um, why am I blanking on his name? I know they're not Matt and Jeff. I'm sorry, guys. I am really blanking on his name right now. And the acclaimed. This is interesting because a lot of people feel like the acclaimed has seemed to have lost a level of their luster. Um, since they've sort of, lost the trios titles at one point and they're just not, clicking as much as they used to, and they feel like the raps that are coming from old dude just aren't hitting the same and they're just bordering more so on inappropriate. And a lot of people are calling for Anthony Bowens to be set free from Max Caster. And it's just really insane how it's happening. But, that's just how people are feeling in the wrestling streets. So I don't know. But I do know that this has the makings of being another tag team classic when it comes to these three tag teams. They're really good. Of course, the FTR at this point is basically tag team royalty. I never get bored in a match that they're in. I just never do because they've always been amazing. Even when they were the revival in NXT, like they just never bore you at all. And then you have the Young Bucks who are just trying to, be all evil and powerful now. Um, so I'm predicting that maybe FTR could win this match, simply because they could out wrestle everyone here. But you also have the acclaimed who seem to be very hungry to get back to their former glory. So I'm not going to count them out either, but I'm definitely predicting that FTR could win this tag team title match and then just send the Young Bucks in a tailspin and just make them go wild. But you just never know. Also in the Ringside Club, someone else also mentioned the idea of the acclaimed possibly turning heel on Billy Gunn. And that would be very painful because, I mean, why would you turn heel on daddy ass like that? Like, that would suck. Um, or they mentioned the fact that maybe Max Caster could turn on Anthony, and that would suck too, because that would just be very painful. But you just never know with shows like this because it's so big and there's so many stories that could be told here. So you just never know. But I'm predicting FTR as the winners of this match. And then, of course, we have the World Trios Championship match. This is, I believe, a four-way London ladder match between the Patriarchy, the Bang Bang Gang, House of Black, and Pac and Blackpool Combat Club. This is crazy. This is another extreme match that is taking place on this card. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to predict that the House of Black is going to win because they're my favorite trios team out of everyone in this whole group. I know the Patriarchy have been going on a reign of terror lately, but I would just really love it if House of Black were to be able to win because I just want to see Buddy and Malachi and Brody win things. Like, I just want to see them win things. They're just dark and creepy, and I just want the house to win at some point, at this point. So, yeah, I want them to be the trios champions. But either way, this match is going to be wild because there are ladders involved. And this match is just going to be the textbook definition of let the bodies hit the floor. So, yeah, that's what this is going to be. And I'm excited about it. But I'm predicting House of Black will win. And finally, we have the career versus title match between Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. Now, I'm just going to say that though Swerve and I have had, well, like I know him, I don't know him, but um when it comes to different ways of seeing things in terms of blackness, I have had my disagreements with some of the things that Swerve has done, but something that I will never take away from the man is the fact that he has worked himself ragged to prove that he could be a top guy in a company. Because I remember the first time I saw him in 205 Live in NXT, I always felt that he was incredibly talented, and I just wanted the world for him because I just saw all the talent, all the ooze that he had. I just wanted the very best for him from a wrestling fan standpoint. And then him and Hit Row, that was a whole thing. But then just watching him rise in AEW and make something big of himself has been astounding to watch. And I will give him all the credit in the world for all of the history that he has made for Black wrestling as a whole. And I'm just, proud of the fact that he is the first Black AEW world champion. And hopefully there will be many more after him, you know, once his reign is over. I hope that there are more Black AEW world champions after him because he has set the precedent for it and he has done it, and that's just really great for him. And you have Bryan Danielson, who has this storied career that has just been at the very top, and then it sort of had a middle ground where it ended, or where we thought it ended, and then his health was back and forth, and he was finally able to come back, and then he did his things in AEW, well, in WWE, and then came over to AEW to have the different levels of matches that he used to have. And that's something that I do appreciate as well. And I just appreciate his presence in wrestling as a whole because I just feel like he's made it better. He really has made wrestling better for a lot of people coming after him. So, from a history standpoint, this is going to be a very emotional match for sure. Um, and you could argue that Bryan Danielson really has not had a really huge, big, fat moment that matches up to the one that he had at WrestleMania 30, at YesleMania. So it would be really cool if he did win. Um, and I feel like it would take nothing away from Swerve at this point. Even though a lot of people are saying it will, I don't think it will at all. So, um, I think I'm predicting that maybe Bryan will win this match and he will have his big moment, and that maybe he will still retire and he'll have the distinction of retiring as champion because no one in AEW has ever done that before. It has been done in wrestling before because I remember Trish Stratus did it, but of course she came back. But whatever, she did retire as champion. Um, and I'm not entirely sure if it's been done before in other spaces, but that's just the one that um, is in my mind in terms of recent history. So it would be cool if that would happen for Bryan Danielson, for him to win the title and then retire as champion, so he can just go home and live a blessed and prosperous life, and not be a full-time person, a full-time wrestler. So that would be really cool. And I just feel that it won't take anything from Swerve because he has worked very hard to get to this point. So yeah, Bryan Danielson is my prediction. And of course, this is all taking place tomorrow, on pay-per-view, and it's going to be in Wembley in London, which means for us over here in the US, it'll be earlier in the day and not really late at night. So it's going to be cool. So yeah, AEW, those are all of my predictions for All In. And now we're going to move into what I liked in wrestling this week. So this past weekend was the 101st episode of WoW Superheroes. And one of their matches that definitely stood out to me from a technical standpoint was Princess Aussie versus Genesis, the Battle of the Australian Women. And this was their second match against each other. And now Princess Aussie is 2-0 against Genesis. And I did talk more about it on Steph and Cat Talk Wow this week. So please go back to our YouTube channels and watch the episode if you missed it. But this match was really amazing. And I just wanted to discuss it and give it its flowers on HWP because it was just really amazing from a technical standpoint. And Princess Aussie just had a lot of fire in this match. And Genesis had a lot of mouth. But either way, it was still a great bout, and I definitely recommend you go and watch it because it's really good. Um, WoW is continuing to have really good matches, and of course, they have started taping for season 3. So eventually, that's going to get started airing. So I'm just really excited about that. But yeah, go back and watch Genesis versus Princess Aussie because it was really good. Now, moving into what I liked on Monday Night Raw this week, I loved the performance of Maxine Dupree against Ivy Nile for the short bit of time that they did wrestle. Maxine came in hot, and of course, Ivy Nile has stabbed her in the back. They were best friends, but Ivy Nile has joined up with the Creed brothers and Chad Gable in American Made, and Maxine Dupree cut a scathing promo on her phone and posted it to social media and just wanted to get her lick back. So as she got her lick back, she came in hot with a drop kick to Ivanhoe as she was making her entrance. The bell didn't even ring yet. She was just going ham. And then she hit this suplex outside of the ring. That was fantastic. But of course, before the match even got underway, towards its midpoint, Ivanhoe gets attacked by Nikki Cross and the Wyatt Six. And of course, American Made tried to come out there and help, but of course, there was no help against these menacing, crazy people. And they came out there and destroyed American Made again. So, this, of course, led into the announcement that Chad Gable will be fighting Uncle Howdy slash Bo Dallas um, this coming Monday. And I'm really excited about that. And of course, the timing of it is just really crazy, given what today is. But I'm just really excited to see this match take place. I just really love this feud because, as you can see, with the posts and with so many things that the Wyatt Six has been talking about in their promos, they are targeting Chad Gable because he's just abusing the idea of family when they take family very seriously. And I just love it. I just love everything about the Wyatt Six and everything that they stand for. Except the one nitpick that I had about this segment was that Ivy Nile and Nikki Cross had a little bit of a fight going on, but it wasn't that much dedicated to them as women before the men jumped in. And that's something that I find a little bit irritating. Because even with Nikki Cross's segment, when they had all of the different promos from all the members of the Wyatt Six, Nikki didn't speak that much, if not at all. And as the only female member of the Wyatt Six, I wanted to hear more from her and her motivations of joining up with the family. And it just doesn't seem like they're feeding into that a whole lot. Or maybe she's just meant to be the crazy person just attacking people. I don't know. But either way, I would have liked to see more of what her mindset is because we've heard verbally from the other male members. I want to hear more from Nikki as the only female. But other than that, I loved everything about the segment. It was great. It was cool. I loved it. Another thing I loved in terms of the women on Monday Night Raw was the triple threat match for the women's tag team titles with Isla and Alba Fire going up against Toxic, not Toxic. Oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm getting all these names mixed up in my head. Forgive me, y'all. Against Damage Control and the Pure Fusion Collective. And this match was really good. It was relatively smooth. You saw a lot of what all of these tag teams had to offer. But the thing that I liked the most about the match was how it ended. And that was with the Unholy Union retaining their titles in a very slick way. Like they outmaneuvered the other tag teams because they were hitting all of their moves and such. But because they tagged each other and the tag teams didn't notice it, but of course, Aja Smith, the referee, noticed it. It was just like, okay, you didn't see what was going on and their strategy, and they wound up retaining that way. And I appreciated that. And also, I appreciated the aesthetic of seeing this triple threat women's tag team match take place. And then you had Aja as the referee, and then you had Samantha Irvin, announcing it. That was really cool. I just really love it when all the women are collectively together that way. It flows perfectly on the eyes. I love it. So I love the match. I love the way it ended. And then once it ended, that was when I realized that the writing was on the wall and that the Unholy Union are going to have to face Bianca and Jade. Yes. So I was really cool with that and I love this match. So it was great. And yeah, they retained. So that was cool. Now, I got to discuss the judgment day of it all. And of course, you see in this picture the judgment day, or at least the judgment day 3.0, attacked Rhea and Damien because Damien had a scheduled match against Dominic, but Rhea told him, like, I really feel like this might be a trap. But then he said, look, I'm just gonna go out there anyway and fight them, and she believed in him or whatnot. So he came out there, and before the match even got started, he gets attacked by everybody in Judgment Day 3.0. And then Rhea comes out there to try to even the odds and attack Liv, but the numbers game got ahead of them, and this was how Judgment Day was standing. But before all of this, and after, you could say, Rhea Ripley cut a promo on Liv Morgan and called her and basically said that you became the one thing that you hate the most, a discount Rhea Ripley. And I wanted to die when she said that. And I was just like, so lived and became a discount Rhea Ripley, a bargain town Rhea Ripley, a Dollar General Rhea Ripley, a Family Dollar Rhea Ripley, essentially a 99-cent store in LA Rhea Ripley. And she's not wrong because, yeah, although Liv said that I was going to take everything you love in this revenge tour, essentially she's been doing all the bidding for the Judgment Day and helping Dominic win his matches and everything the same way Rhea used to. And it's just, girl, it's giving single white female. Like, it's giving I want your life and everything in it. And she didn't lie not once. Now, after the attack, Liv cut a promo on her and said that at Bash in Berlin in their mixed tag that she was gonna make Rhea her bitch. And something that was gross was the fact that Dominic said, "Ooh, I like it when you talk dirty." And I'm just like, ugh, can y'all just stop? If it's one thing that I can't stand about Dominic and Liv as a couple, it's just how delusional they are. They are absolutely delulu in thinking that they're the most powerful couple in WWE. And I'm just like, y'all just got together. You ain't been together 5 minutes, and y'all are already calling yourselves the most dominant couple. I guess just forget Randy and Elizabeth. Just forget China and Eddie. Just forget everybody else. Forget Triple H and Stephanie. Y'all are the most dominant couple. And even forget Montez and Bianca. Y'all are the most dominant couple. Baby, bye. And then the thing that it just irritates me the most is that every time you see Liv, it's almost like to the point to where you barely see her with the women's title anymore. It's like you see her hanging on Dominic like a dead animal all the time. And it's just like, girl, stand up. Please stand up. You are weak in the knees. Stand up. It's just so irritating for me. And they're just so gross. It's just, ugh. They just make me want to throw up every time I see them. It's just, ugh. They're just the worst. I hate it. I hate it. I just hate it. And I love, but I hate this. So, yeah, that was crazy. Now, when it comes to the men, I definitely recommend that you go and watch the Raw match between Sheamus and Pete Dunne. This was a very hard hitting European UK strong style type of match. And if you don't watch it for anything else, just watch it for the visual of watching Sheamus rip his wrist out of a turnbuckle in order to knock the heck out of Pete Dunne. That was fire. And I really appreciated that. Like, Sheamus did that for us. He did that for himself, but he did that for us. And I just appreciated it. That match was fantastic. I loved it. So go and watch that match. And then, of course, we have this hilarious moment with CM Punk coming out to cut a promo and to ask for a strap match at Bash in Berlin with Drew McIntyre. Now, last week on Raw, um, or depending on when you listen to it, 2 weeks ago on Raw, he attacked Drew McIntyre and beat him with a belt, the same way some of our parents used to do. And Drew McIntyre posted on social media all of the welts that he had from getting hit with CM Punk's belt. So CM Punk comes out here, cuts a promo this past Monday with the strap around his neck after talking about how fun of a time he had at Fanatics Fest and stuff, and all the bracelets that he had and stuff. And of course, tying it in with the bracelet that Drew McIntyre has. And talked about how he wants to tie Drew McIntyre to him so he can beat him up with a strap in a strap match. And it's very old school because, of course, in a strap match, not only are you beating your opponent to a bloody pulp and wrestling them down, you have to go around and touch every turnbuckle in order to, win the match as well. It's a very old school concept. And CM Punk is a wrestling scholar, so he definitely knew that. And I'm glad that he said that for the people who might not necessarily know that because strap matches don't happen that often. But yeah, he went on to say, I want a strap match because I want to whip this bitch. And I was just like, oh, I like this. I like hearing him, talk like that. Like I like he's very sincere about when he wants to destroy someone. And I just really loved it. And then when it came to all of the friendship bracelets that he wound up getting at Fanatics Fest, he said, yeah, it might be a Taylor Swift thing, but face it, I'm Taylor Swift for men. And I laughed so hard. It's really funny because in certain wrestling circles, people really do think that he's the problem. Just like Taylor Swift's song Anti-Hero. It's me. Hi, the problem, it's me. And it just fits. And someone online made this picture where it's CM Punk the Eras tour. And you could argue that him being back in WWE is low key on some Eras stuff. Because when he came back, you saw all of his old logos on the screen and stuff like that. And then he has the newer stuff out too. And they're selling his older merchandise. So at this rate, he's essentially on his own Eras tour. So CM Punk is essentially the Taylor Swift for men. And he's not wrong. And it made me really cackle really loud. So yeah, this was just really funny. And I just really feel, and in my mind, which is like the title of this episode, if CM Punk is the Taylor Swift for men, then Roman Reigns is Beyonce for men. So this is where we're at. It's just really funny where we're at. So I'm happy that we're getting this strap match at Bash in Berlin. No, it's going to be lit. Now, another part of Raw that was very, very heartfelt, but also heartbreaking is, of course, the tension that's going on in the New Day between Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods and them adopting Odyssey Jones into the fold. Now, of course, Kofi said that he ran into Odyssey when he was training at the Performance Center, getting back in shape after his injury. And Xavier was like, okay, why are you doing this? He didn't necessarily like it. Like his body language literally said, I don't like this. And he pulled Kofi to the side, and asked him, like, bro, like, even though you felt like you were doing a good thing, I wish you had talked to me first because I don't like the idea of us possibly replacing Big E. Like, I just don't want to do that. And Kofi told him and reassured him and said, look, we're not replacing Big E. It's just that Odyssey was just looking for a place of belonging since he, is just finding his way in WWE. And then he said, you remember how it was when we were in WWE trying to find our place, and, people were trying to take us under our wing, because a lot of people don't remember when Xavier came up to the main roster, he was in a tag team with R-Truth. A lot of people don't remember that. And then when Kofi came up, he kind of came up by himself, but still, he found his way that way. So, and he probably wished he had somebody take him under his wing. So I guess he calls himself paying it forward now in a full circle moment. But Xavier was like, okay, well, let me just fix myself, in the way that I'm, looking at it. And of course, they went on to their tag team match against the Final Testament, who they've been beefing with the past couple of weeks. And Kofi was fighting in the match, and when he was struggling to reach for the corner, he decided to tag in Odyssey, except for Xavier. And look at Xavier's face. He did not like it. And if it's one thing us Virgos do, if we don't tell you how we feel immediately, you gonna see it on our face. And that's exactly what he did. They zoomed in on his face and everything. The cameramen are so petty, but they really zoomed in on his face. Like, he did not like the fact that Kofi did not tag him in, and it was just so sad. And they went on to win the match because Odyssey is a very powerful man, and he was a big difference maker in that match. But Xavier was not happy about it, and this is breaking my heart because I am such a big New Day fan, and I have championed them on this show multiple times. Um, and talked about them on other shows, and just loving everything that they've done as a whole for Black wrestling and just for wrestling as a whole. And how I feel that in my mind, they're the greatest faction of all time. Now, of course, people can argue about it all they want to, but in my mind, when it comes to impact as a whole, and just what they offer, they're just the greatest faction of all time. And to see them sort of struggle for relevancy without Biggie because he got injured years ago. Um, and then not be on top, in terms of tag team gold on the main roster, because they did win tag team gold on NXT, but then they came to the main roster and they haven't really won tag team gold in a while. And then to see them be this at odds has just been so hurtful. And I don't want to see them break up, whether it's Xavier doing the turn or whether it's Kofi doing the possible turn. Either way, I don't want to see it happen because they offer so much joy and happiness, and I just love everything about them. So watching them end when it's been so long, 10 years, it's just, oh my God, it's just going to hurt. It's going to hurt so bad. And I'm not ready for it. And I was almost afraid that it was going to happen this Monday or this past Monday, but they're stretching it. And there's the possibility that it could happen the first week of September, which would break my heart because me and Xavier's birthday is September the 4th. And I don't want that to be the vibes for my birthday week. But oh my God, no. So yeah, this hurts. It hurts so bad, but this is where we're at. Fix it, Jesus. So yeah. Um Moving on into what else I liked in wrestling this week. I definitely loved seeing Team WWE for the men and the women on Celebrity Family Feud with Steve Harvey. This came on before, well, not before, this came on during NXT, which low key irritated me. But at the same time, I was still happy because I wanted to see how they were going to perform on the show, and it wound up only being 30 minutes. So this was amazing and very entertaining. And Team Women won. And for those who don't know, Bianca Bianca Belair, Zelina Vega, Jade Cargill, Michin, and Sonya Deville were on the teams for the women. And the team for the men were Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley before, of course, he left WWE, and LA Knight. So they put up a really good fight, but then the women wound up winning. And Bianca even gave pretty hilarious answers if you did not see it online. And then another funny moment happened where we saw Zelina Vega standing up on a stool because she is short. She is a short queen. And though she had on platform boots, she still had to stand on a stool for the microphone. So, yeah, I love my sweet Zelina. She's so amazing. And, she did great on the show, as did everyone. But I was really happy that the women got the win. And of course, all of their earnings went to Connor's Cure. So that's really great. And this was a very enjoyable 30 minutes of Celebrity Family Feud. So if you did not watch it when it aired, you can go and watch it on Hulu because it comes on ABC. So please watch it. Please watch it. It was fun. Now, after this part went off, I was able to watch NXT, and the part that we came in on was Lola Vice versus Wendy Chu. This match was relatively good. Something that I am loving seeing is the evolution of Wendy Chu's sleepy character. She's basically a sleep paralysis demon, and it's just really amazing to see her doing this and seeing her fight against someone like Lola Vice, who, has had a pretty stellar year for the most part. Um, I believe, yeah, Wendy Chu wound up winning this match because she used her pillow, which was loaded with Kalani Jordan's NXT Women's North American title that she had taken, and she smacked her across the head with it, and she wound up winning. But then there was the distraction that happened from Kalani Jordan coming in and confronting Wendy Chu for stealing her title, and then Lola wound up giving a spinning back fist to Kalani, which knocked her out temporarily, and then Wendy Chu wound up, taking advantage. And then, of course, Kalani beat up on Wendy and got her title back and stood tall. So this gives us the notion, well, the indication that Kalani and Wendy will be fighting for the women's North American title at No Mercy in 2 weeks. So this is going to be interesting. I know on the Ringside Club, if you haven't watched that episode over there, one of the hosts was kind of saying that they feel like Kalani is a placeholder, but honestly, I disagree with that because Kalani, for her to be the first ever champion, that has a big distinction to it. And I don't think she's a placeholder for anyone because when you're the first ever champion, you have to, you know, go into it with the notion that you're going to make this title yours while also, making it more and exposing it more, in terms of how you're going to fight for it. And she's been doing an excellent job. And considering, she had had different moments where she made it almost to the top of things, like with the deadline match, like with the Iron Survivor match, and the women's breakout tournament, and she didn't win. It made sense for her to win the North American title. So, yeah, she isn't a placeholder. She's a really great first ever champion. So, yeah, Let's stop playing on Kalani Jordan's top. Okay, like this is Kalani Van Dam, and she is her. Um, for a reason. So, yeah, her growth is amazing. Then we had the debut of a new three-woman faction called Fatal Influence, which of course is centered on Fallon Henley, JC Jane, formerly of Toxic Attraction, and Chase U, and Jasmine Nix, who is more so of a newcomer. And this, of course, this faction I kind of saw coming because they've sort of been, you know, fighting for each other and taking up for each other when it comes to certain causes. They feel like a lot of the women who are coming in who are a little bit newer than they are sort of coming in and having too much dip on their chip. So they want to, humble them. But what's so funny is Jasmine Nick sort of falls under that category, but she subscribes to their way of thinking, hence why she's joined them. And a lot of people online were saying that this is kind of like Toxic Attraction 2.0, but I don't think this is what that is at all because Toxic Attraction was sort of based off of their wrestling ability, yes, but also their badness mixed in with their sensual sex appeal. It doesn't seem like sex appeal is a part of Fatal Influence at all. It's something completely different. And the fact that JC Jane has built herself up to this point to become um, more of a NXT veteran and having her own faction in his way is pretty astounding in and of itself. Now, a part of me hopes that Gigi Dolan can come back and have the same luck once she heals up from her injury. But yeah, Fatal Influence is its own thing, and I think we should judge it as its own thing and not call it Toxic Attraction because it's not. It's literally not. So yeah, I like the promo that they cut. The only downside I would find to this is the fact that Fallon kept saying, when she turned heel, that Fallon comes first. So how are you going to come first if you're in a group with other people the same way that you once were with Briggs and Jensen? But I guess we just got to see how it works. So yeah. Another thing that I loved with the women's division in NXT is Jada Parker becoming the number one contender to face off against Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship. Jada Parker is somebody who is gradually evolving more with her in-ring game, and she definitely has her persona on lock. Like, her attitude is absolutely there. She definitely believes in herself, and you also just can't stop looking at her because she's such a beautiful woman. And um and a lot of people, of course, and a lot of people love her because of the beauty part, but you also have to look at her in-ring work too, and it's definitely getting better and evolving. And because she has had so much of a blazing trail so far, it makes sense that she is the number one contender for the title. And to face off against someone like Roxanne Perez, who is a veteran in wrestling for someone as young as she is, like, it's just astounding to see, these young women just holding down the fort when it comes to, their evolutions in women's wrestling. So I'm excited about the match. I'm excited about Jada Parker's trajectory. The only thing that sort of makes me sad and upsets me about this, though, is the fact that when it comes to Roxanne, a lot of people have been speculating that since the signings of Julia and Stephanie Vacour have become public, they're speculating highly that Julia and Stephanie could be the top two contenders for the NXT Women's title once they do make their debuts. And I feel like that essentially would be unfair to the girls like Jada Parker and like Sol Ruka and like so many others who have not had a chance at the NXT Women's title, who came up through the NXT system, and looking to cut their teeth for that type of title. Um, I don't feel like that's fair to them. So if we get to No Mercy, and I'm more than sure I'll be doing a prediction show for NXT No Mercy. Um, if we get to No Mercy and Jada does win, I would prefer to see Roxanne feud against either Julia or Stephanie in non-title work before she's called up to the main roster. That's just my preference. I would just prefer, if these two women are going to come up, that you don't have them win, qualify for a title immediately when you have so many other women, young women at that, who have not had a chance. So that's just sort of my 2 cents on that. But that's just how I feel about it. But big ups to Jada Parker for becoming the contender for it. Now, when it comes to NXT's men, um, something that I liked from a very womanly perspective was the match between Ashanti the Adonis and Dion Lennox. And it had been a minute since we had seen Dion Lennox on NXT television proper. I know he had been doing his thing on NXT Level Up, which comes on Fridays. But one of the things that people have been talking about on social media with Dion is the fact that, along with his glasses and everything, and a lot of people were calling him Clark Kent or whatever, he's fine. He's fine. Um, he definitely fits my type a bit. And Ashanti the Adonis is, of course, jealous of him because he seems to be a very cool, introverted bookworm, who tends to get women's attention without trying so hard. Whereas Ashanti the Adonis tries super hard to get the ladies to get his attention. And that's really where the match came from. And of course, Ashanti the Adonis wound up winning, but a lot of girls some of the girls in the audience were checking out Dion Lennox because he has that body. Like, he is buff and he has that look, and he has that sort of sweet attitude that a lot of girls, and gays are probably looking for. We like a good looking guy with a sweet attitude who doesn't, you know, objectify women or try to make it seem like, oh, well, I'm something to conquer or something like that. Like, Ashanti the Adonis is basically like, he's a guy who knows he's hot and feels like other women should just, he just tries to act like he's God's gift to women. and that's not cute. So yeah, he wound up winning, but Dion Lennox is the one who really has it together. So it's cool. Also, this is a Javon Evans stand account, and I just want to say that even though he didn't have a match this week, he had a promo backstage where he was watching over the Heritage Cup. And let me just say, every time Javon Evans speaks, he reminds me so much of my sister because he's 20 years old and he's just so young. And just hearing him speak just reminds me that there are so many people, so many young people underneath you that are coming with their own lingo and their own personalities. And I just love seeing that highlighted on television in Javon Evans. And he's just so talented, and I just want the world for him. So I just wanted to say that, even though he did not have a match this week. So yeah, love to Javon Evans. And then, of course, when it comes to Joe Hendry, he was able to qualify as number one contender for Ethan Page's, which I hate saying, NXT championship because he was in a triple threat against Wesley and Pete Dunne. And he wound up coming out on top, even though evil Ethan Page kept trying. Oh, I skipped ahead. Kept trying to keep the referees from counting one, two, three for him. As it turns out, when Pete Dunne tried to take advantage, Trick Williams gave him the trick shot knee, knocked him out, and then the other referee who got pulled away counted the one, two, three, four Joe Hendry before Ethan was able to interrupt it. And now TNA's Joe Hendry is a number one contender. This is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I talked to him on the phone this week. I'm saying it because, if you know his journey, it's just really amazing to see someone like him, you know, have this viral success and then have success on two different brands. And then to have him on this worldwide brand, and qualify to face off against Ethan Page is just amazing. It's just really great, and I hope he does beat Ethan Page because it would just be really cool to see. Because I don't want just the NXT partnership to just be the NXT people beating the TNA people. That's just not what I want. Because when Roxanne beat Jordan Grace for the NXT Women's title at Battleground, that made me sad because you had so many dignitaries from TNA in the audience. And the idea that Jordan lost the way she did with the shenanigans and stuff just upset me. So I don't want it to be a constant record of TNA people losing to NXT people because it's making it seem like the partnership is one-sided, like it's only making one side look strong while making the other side look weak. I don't want that. So if Joe Hendry were to pull an upset and win this title, I would be very excited about that. But my excitement would also be twofold because it would be taking the title away from someone who just fell into winning the title off of Trick Williams. And I feel like ultimately Trick Williams should still be NXT champion right now, in my opinion, because based off of the logic that I had in talking about the Julia and Stephanie Vacour argument, you could argue the same thing about Ethan Page. Like he just signed with NXT after leaving AEW. And yeah, his go in AEW wasn't as the top guy, and he probably wanted something different for himself. And I appreciate that. But don't dethrone the people in NXT who've been working their way up just because you want a shock value thing. Like, I just don't feel like that's fair to all of those people who work, in the PC all that time to win the title and then, put a stamp on it only for them to lose to someone who just got there and is just looking for an opportunity to be a top person somewhere else. That's just not fair. I feel like Trick Williams should definitely still be NXT champion because he worked his way up. He beat Carmelo Hayes twice in two high profile matches. He beat Ilya Dragunov for the title. I feel like creatively there was so much more that you could have done to solidify Trick Williams as a champion. And yes, you could argue that he could have won, that he can win the title back at any point. But taking it off of him just did not work for me. I did not like it. I didn't. It made me sad. So yeah, um, but I am hoping for Joe Hendry to do his very best in his match. I will be doing predictions for No Mercy coming up, so be on the lookout for that. And that's all I liked in NXT. So now we're gonna move to the SmackDown side of things. Um, because I tried to move too fast. And let me just say, these three women never cease to amaze me and never cease to make me proud to be a black female wrestling fan. To watch these three unite their powers again, after months, because they hadn't wrestled in a match together since WrestleMania, and to see them fight Blair Davenport in the Unholy Union and come out victorious on SmackDown when for weeks we did not see a lot of black victories up until now meant the world to me. And to see them dressed in their gear, which was paying tribute to Team USA, and then to wear it in Washington, D.C., of all places, too. It just meant the world to me. And for them to pay tribute to, the GOAT Simone Biles and Team USA as a whole, it was just so beautiful. And watching Naomi, get the finishing move and pinning Blair Davenport was just so amazing. So just this visual and seeing these women together just heals my soul in a lot of places. And this came during a week where we saw, not to get political, but where we saw a black and Asian woman um take the nomination for the Democratic Party for president of the United States. It just means so much for representation. And this is something that I hope continues to happen and just continues to flourish when it comes to WWE. I just love it. I just loved every inch of it. And I want this picture and every other picture that they took together at WrestleMania on my wall somewhere if I get an office or something. Like I just feel like pictures of them should low key be on the level of pictures of Obama and pictures of Martin Luther King and just so many black iconic figures because they just do it for me every time. Um I'm so proud of Bianca Belair, Naomi, and Jade Cargill. And hopefully Jade and Bianca can win the tag titles at Bash in Berlin because they've definitely earned their opportunity. And yeah, I just love these women. I love, love, love these women. I'm just so grateful to be alive during this point of history where we have these women succeeding in wrestling, succeeding in WWE, but then also just black women as a whole succeeding in wrestling as a whole, in AEW and everywhere else. So it's beautiful. So moving on before I get even more emotional. Yeah, their gear paid tribute to Simone Biles. Shout out to Mello is Monet on social media for putting the collage together. That was cool. So thank you for that. And also speaking of other black women, black and Asian women at that, Michin had her own segment where she was talking about struggles that she's faced as a wrestler. And then she got on social media and posted a note where she shared a bit of her personal story where people sort of underestimated her and her abilities and her wanting to be excuse me, wanting to be a wrestler. Um and telling her that she should just be a doctor or a lawyer and telling her that she didn't have the right look or that she wasn't good enough to be a wrestler, but how she proved all of her doubters wrong. Um Seeing her get this type of segment was really amazing. And of course, she got this segment because she got a title match against Nia Jax in a street fight on SmackDown next Friday in Berlin. So this is an amazing opportunity for her. This isn't her first women's championship match because she did have one against Io Sky last year, and that was really good. But this street fight is going to be pretty intense. I'm excited about it, and I'm glad that Michin has that opportunity. So big ups to her, and big ups for representation for that as well. And of course, you have Naya here listening to Chelsea Green and Piper Niven talk about her behind her back and her Queen's Court with Miss Money in the Bank, Tiffany Stratton, and how they feel like Tiffany is just going to stab her in the back eventually. So she didn't like that. But either way, the women are popping off on the Blue brand, and I'm happy about it. Now, with the men on SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes was in the barbershop bragging about finally beating Andrade. And as happy as I was that Carmelo finally got one over on Andrade because I need him to win matches more. Um, Andrade invaded the barbershop and told him, like, the way you disrespected me last week was terrible. So because you disrespected me that way, we're gonna have another match. So next week, or maybe in 2 weeks, we don't know. We will be getting Carmelo versus Andrade 4, and I'm happy about that. Um, Something that people have been talking about, and that I've even discussed in other places on social media, is Carmelo Hayes' trajectory since he's been brought up on the main roster. He was the number one pick for the men on SmackDown because, of course, Roman was picked, but then he wasn't really in the draft in that way. I feel like for somebody like him who made a big shot and challenged Cody Rhodes, he just seems to be losing a whole lot. And you have someone like him who came up at the same time in NXT as Braun Breaker. And I think this is something that could be seen in terms of storytelling purposes, even though they're on two separate brands. Braun Breaker seemed to have the rocket strapped to him really quickly on NXT because he was a two-time NXT champion before Carmelo ultimately had his chance as NXT champion. And you could argue that they were always neck and neck with each other. But it really seems like, there's a whole lot of emphasis being placed on Braun, and then there's emphasis being placed on Carmelo, but not in the same way. And that worries me a little bit. But then at the same time, since they're giving him all this time on television, I'm not as worried. But at the same time, I'm really rooting for Carmelo Hayes to get his things because he is so, so talented. I've talked about it numerous times on this show. I've interviewed him before. Like, y'all seen all of my Carmelo content. And if you haven't, please go back and listen to it and watch it because it's great. But I just want Carmelo to have his shining moment as the future of SmackDown or as the future of WWE, like the other call ups have been, or some of the other call ups have been, getting their shine on. And he's been getting his shine on too, just in a different way. But I just want more from him. I want more victories. I want him to qualify for more things. Like, I want him to challenge LA Knight for the United States Championship. I want John Cena to face him during his farewell tour because they're two different generations of wrestlers from Massachusetts. I want the world for Carmelo Hayes, okay? And I might sound like his agent right now or something, but I just want the world for Carmelo Hayes because he is him, okay? He believes in himself. I don't care what it takes. Give Carmelo everything. Give him everything. But of course, him being in a fourth match with Andrade isn't the worst thing in the world either because they have had stellar matches. And I would argue that their third one was definitely like in the top tier of their series of matches. But after this, give Carmelo his things. That's all I have to say. Um yeah. Um then we had Cody Rhodes, the WWE champion, throw mad shade at Grayson Waller on the Grayson Waller effect, but it was warranted because Grayson was interrupting him in his whole entrance shtick that the fans love. How you gonna not have the American Nightmare do all of his ohs and his, fireworks and stuff in the nation's capital? Just a hater. Just a hater. But here's the thing. Cody Rhodes gathered him and told him that while he was trying to call out his friend Kevin Owens for being a friend, for being a person who stabs his friends in the back, he called him out and gathered Grayson and said, "Aren't you, using Austin Theory? Because every time you get in a sticky situation, you make your friend take the bullet for you." And he tried to like divert from it or whatever, but it's valid, okay? Like, Austin Theory deserves better, but I just loved how Cody really gathered him together like that. So that was fun. But then I also love the new setup for the Grayson Waller effect. He has his own carpet now. He has his own desk and stuff. He had his own desk before, but it's like an upgraded version. So it was just really cool to see that. But I am waiting for the day that Austin Theory stands up for himself and turns face. So yeah, it's really cool. Now, I'm gonna need better for the Street Profits though, because for them to have lost the tag team title match against the Bloodline, I understand you're trying to make the Bloodline like the way that they used to be or whatever, but it's not giving. And I wanted the Street Profits to win so bad, but the fact that they haven't been and have basically been knocked back down the line just upsets me. It's so upsetting. I just I want the world for Montez and Angelo, and it just seems like they've been getting a little bit of a short end of the stick um since Bobby left, and I just this is really the first time they have been in contention for the tag titles in a minute, and for them to have lost the way that they did with the cheating and all that just broke my heart. So we're praying for better for the Street Profits at this point. But there is still that part of me that remembers what Montez said in Love and WWE, where he said that his dream was to be WWE champion. And I'm just like, look, if y'all don't pull the trigger on him now, then I guess y'all just ain't gonna do it. So I don't know. I'm just sad about it. But yeah, they got jumped by them afterward. And DIY came out and helped them, but then they got jumped afterward. And maybe this means that DIY will challenge for the tag titles again, but either way, I don't want them to get it again after losing it for so long. Like I really want the Street Profits to possibly like be on some gangster stuff and challenge the bloodline again, but at the same time, I just don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. But yeah, that's all of what I enjoyed in wrestling this week. So thank you guys so much for oh David, hey! Um Lashley is gone from WWE. His contract went up and he didn't renew it, so he is gone from WWE. He is a free agent. So thank you for that question, David. Thank you for watching too. Like it's really great. Um so yeah. Um that's all for HWP this week. So, of course, if you have not already, please check out my show, Steph and Cat Talk Wow, where me and Katrina from In Cat We Trust give a post show talking about women of wrestling superheroes. That's Wow superheroes. Check it out every Wednesday, unless otherwise stated, on all of our live platforms, and watch it on our YouTube channels. And also watch our interviews that we've done with Wow superheroes as well. Please check those out as we continue to grow and as WoW continues to grow, because like I said, they are filming. This is the last day of filming, actually today. This was the last day of filming for their season 3, so I'm sure that's going to be happening soon. And we will be here to cover it. So please check out Steph and Cat Talk WoW. We love doing the show. And we love women's wrestling. So just check that out. Also, if you're looking for a podcast host, a writer, a color commentator, or a panelist for any one of your comic conventions or your wrestling events or just any one of your website platforms, then I am your girl. Email me at hardywrestlingpodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram and on Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, and we can talk about rates. We can talk about writing for your platform or being a guest on your show or anything. I love talking wrestling with people, as you can tell from interviews that I do or stuff like that. Like, I love appearing on other people's shows and all that stuff. I love being collaborative. So please just email or DM your girl, and I'm willing to work with anyone. So let's get it cracking, y'all. Let's get it cracking. And of course, coming up is Black Girls Wrestle, a new promotion in Florida. They will be having their show called The Blackout in Daytona Beach on September the 28th. And I will be on color commentary with Sahara 7. I am very excited about this because the very best in Black female wrestling, especially in the independents and wherever, will be on this show to fight for the Black Girls Wrestle Championship, currently being held by former guest Casey Lennox. So if you're in the Daytona Beach area, please buy your tickets for that event. I'm very excited to be a part of it. So please buy your tickets, go to the event and support women's wrestling as a whole, but definitely support Black women in wrestling too, because we are changing the game. So yeah. Also, Please read my new article on dailyddt.com where I write about why WWE needs women's mid card titles. I was very excited to write this article, and I want to thank Raphael for holding space for all of my crazy ideas. So please read that article if you have not already, and read all of my other work as well. Of course, if you go on the website, click this article and then click my name, you'll find every last one of my articles that I've written since last year. This is my 15th one, and I'm very proud of the work that I have done in my growth as a wrestling writer. So please be on the lookout for any new write ups that I might do, and just continue to support your girl as I continue to spread my wings in different wrestling platforms. And of course, buy my merchandise on foryourwear.com/Hardy Wrestling Podcast, where you can find my Beyonce t-shirt that celebrates the love of Bianca Belair and Montez Ford. It's available in all sizes between small and I believe 3X or maybe 4X, so you can get it in the color black. You can also get my very first t-shirt ever, Alabama Wrestling, where I pay tribute to wrestling figures and icons from the state of Alabama, just like me, like Sensational Sherry, Teddy Long, Kayla Becker slash Kayla Braxton, um, Paul Bearer, Fuego del Sol, who was on Rampage recently, um, Deborah, and AQA. And you can buy this t shirt and the hoodie that's available in all sizes and available in the colors black and red on For Your Wear. That's FORYOURWEAR.com/Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Please support your girl and please support the merch. So, of course, this has been the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. I will be back with another episode and possibly predictions episodes for No Mercy and Bash in Berlin. And I hope you're having a fantastic weekend, and I hope you're, doing the very best that you can in life, because, it can be a lot, but as long as you keep your head up and keep yourself aligned with whatever your higher power is, you will make it. So, I'm reconnecting myself, so I'm just getting that together for myself as well, and just trying to move into these new changes and the possibilities that are happening. And I'm my birthday's coming up, so that's really cool too. I'll be turning 31, so that's really great. So just keep your head up and just continue to be the light in the wrestling community. So this has been HWP with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, bye y'all.